Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. We're just gonna get straight into it today. So, we need to put an oil pan on my S54. As you guys know, E30s, the subframe sits more towards the back of the car. Picture your oil pan, like a stock M20, their oil, like the main sump of the oil pan sits here, but on an E36 or an E46 engine, they sit back there, and your subframe is in the way. There's two ways to get around it. There's the expensive way of buying, I think it's called an Arc Asylum kit. It modifies your subframe and stuff like that, and it enables you to use the stock E46 M3 oil pan, but you still have to modify that oil pan. I'm a fabricator, and I can weld and cut and do things, kind of, not really. So I'm like, fuck it. Let me rig my own shit up. I have an E34 oil pan. I had it on my last engine, my M52 in this car, and it worked good and everything, but there's one problem with it. I would scrape it on everything. Like, literally everything. Funny thing about this is, I originally was like, hey, because I actually want to drive this car, I'm gonna pull the engine out and take the oil pan off and modify the oil pan. One thing led into another, I'm like, oh, if I'm taking the engine out to modify the oil pan, I might as well shave the bay. And my friend called me one day and he said, hey, I have a S54 for sale. I'm like, oh, that's crazy, because I just took the engine out of my E30 and I'm shaving a bay right now. That would be insane if I bought an S54. So I bought an S54, then rebuilt the S54. Now here we are, doing the original thing that we started off in this project. The engine sits on here, and then that's how much space you have to the ground, but then the oil pan already sits and drags below that. Literally, I think I had 2 inches between I think it was about an inch between the ground and my oil pan. I took my E34 oil pan and we cut this bad mamma jamma up, boy. It's no longer an E34 oil pan. So basically what I did, I sectioned 2 inches off of the oil pan, so imagine another 2 inches hanging off of this oil pan, and then I cut the side off of it. I made a bunch of cardboard templates. That pretty much sits like that. You guys can get the idea of how that's gonna start boxing in and actually creating an oil pan. I filmed a large portion of this video yesterday of me cutting up the oil pan and taking measurements and doing all that stuff. Before we weld this stuff together, and so you guys know what's going on and know how to do this, if you want to do this, we're gonna cut to that right now. What's up, guys? This is gonna be the part of the video where I said I'm gonna cut here because today's Tuesday and I'm filming a good chunk of this before Wednesday. So when Jude and Brandon show up, I'm not taking hours and hours of their time just doing the same stuff over and over again. So I'm gonna get the oil pan ready right now, which I'll show you guys what I'm doing. This is the oil pan before it got cut. As you know, it's an E34 oil pan. I'm gonna show you guys why I'm doing this. When I drove this car, almost pulling in and out of anywhere, I'd scrape the bottom of the oil pan. You see how scraped down the drain plug is and everything. And my car's pretty damn low. These are just the style 32s I have on here, test fitting them, and you can see how damn low they are. I also like having my car that low, so I'm gonna keep it that low, and I can fabricate and weld, so why not modify my oil pan? So the plan is, we're gonna go over the oil pan. I have a measuring thingy that I went over everything, and I placed it there. I have 1.5 inches down, so I basically went over everything and kind of just held a Sharpie and went all the way around the full 1.5 inches. Also on the dipsticks, if you see the little indent in there, the dipstick actually sits so low, it's basically touching the pan. So this has to be cut and modified, and I'm gonna be raising this up a full 1.5 inches. With that being said, we're gonna get to cutting and welding and doing things, because I could be lazy about this. I have everything, I have the oil pan set up just to bolt onto that engine, then put the engine in the car, but when I'm actually gonna be driving this car, I'm gonna kick myself in the ass that I didn't take the couple hours and modify the oil pan. So that's what we're gonna do.
Many hours later.
All right, guys, so we're back, and the bottom of my oil pan is no longer, well, it's here, but it's not, I guess there's no turning back right now. Now this right here, we're gonna cut off. I just drew a line, took a straight edge line, and then welding a plate on the bottom, extending it out to about like here, and then boxing it in. And then we're gonna be filling that area with like baffles and everything so fluid can't slosh it around and do stuff. I got the piece cut off from here. I have the oil pan sitting on a piece of cardboard, and you guys can see how I'm gonna do it. I have this part traced out, and basically it just runs along the oil pan, like the bottom of the sump, and this is gonna be the bottom, so I'm gonna cut this all the way out, and then I'm gonna transfer it to a piece of aluminum. These oil pans stock hold 7 quarts. My goal is I want this oil pan to hold 8 quarts or 8.5. So I wanna have like an additional 1.5 quarts of oil. And on top of that, I have my CSF oil cooler. So with that CSF oil cooler and this bigger pan, we're gonna be holding hopefully 9 to 9.5 quarts of oil. On a race car or a car that you're driving hard and taking it to the track for track days, the more oil, the better. It's just simple, the more oil, the better. More oil coolers, you know, the bigger oil coolers you have, the better, just keeping everything cool. And if there's more oil, then like the heat has a bigger like area to like disperse into, if that makes sense. We're gonna get some cardboard cut out and we're gonna like box this in. I might make this a little bit wider. I might throw like another inch on this just to get just that little bit more oil in it. But I also have to be mindful of my power steering pump and where that's gonna sit, and not having the power steering pump interfere with the oil pan. So I'm gonna get this cut up. I'm gonna get it mocked up. Power steering pump bolts off the bottom of this. So we just have to be mindful of where the oil pan is sitting. So that's the only clearance issue we're gonna be working with. Other than that, we should be good to go. I'm super excited for this because this thing's gonna look sick, and we're gonna hold a shit ton of oil, and my car is gonna be dirt nasty low without scraping. I got everything mocked up for the oil pan, so I have the bottom plate all cut out and it fits with everything. I think this oil pan should hold probably around another quart more than the other oil pan. So this oil pan is gonna hold around 8 quarts, and then like I said, on top of my oil cooler, that oil cooler additional holds like another quart above the stock oil cooler. So we're gonna have like 9 quarts of oil in the oiling system in this car. So a lot of oil, super happy about that. Today's the next day later. Basically I have, let me show you, I have most of the metal cut out, but what I'm doing right now in preparation before Brandon and Jude get here, because it's really time consuming, I'm basically going over all the spots on the oil pan that we're welding, almost like pre-welding it, because this is cast aluminum, and if you know, cast aluminum is very difficult to weld, especially dirty cast aluminum. And this, I don't know, BMW just did a shitty job making the casting for this aluminum, and it's not that good. So what you're doing, you're basically going over everything with like your torch and new filler rod, and you're kind of like combining that cleaner metal in with the cast metal. It's really time consuming, and I just want to get it done before Brandon and Jude show up.
24 hours later.
And we're back, baby. As you guys just saw in the previous couple clips from yesterday, we cut and modified the oil pan. So we took a decent chunk of aluminum out of the stock E34 oil pan. Dude, I can't wait to drive this car and see like a pebble in the road and not have to worry about that's gonna crack my oil pan. As you guys know, we have all of the plates cut out and everything. This is 6061 aluminum. Woo! Ah!
Don't ever do that again.
Was that too aggressive?
Yeah, way too aggressive.
Way too aggressive?
Way too aggressive. Especially for aluminum, way too aggressive.
What we're doing, first off, we have to weld the main plate on it. So this is the main bottom plate that's gonna sit and like kind of like hold everything, and this is what we're gonna be welding to. Once this is welded on, we're gonna have a series of baffles sitting in here, because this car I'm gonna be taking to the track, and I'm gonna be driving this thing pretty damn aggressively. I mean, come on, it's an E30 with an S54 in it. Who wouldn't? We need to weld in new baffles in it, because when you go to take a corner, that oil is gonna slosh into one side, and then your dipstick is gonna be there. And if it moves away from your dipstick, then you lose oil pressure. And if you lose oil pressure, your day's gonna end really badly. I wanted to talk about the pickup tube. I unfortunately forgot to film this. Basically, the pickup tube, because we cut 2 inches off of the bottom of the oil pan, we cut 2 inches off of the pickup tube. This pickup tube sits so close to the bottom of your oil pan, like you can't, like literally sitting like a millimeter off of the bottom of your oil pan like that, so it can just suck and scavenge all of the oil. I'm not expecting this weld to look the best onto the actual oil pan because we're still welding on cast aluminum, and cast aluminum, the welds aren't gonna look the best, but I'm gonna try my best.
That's all we want.
That's all we want. So, I got my welder fired up. I got the gas turned on. I don't know what else to say. We're just gonna get to welding. So I don't have it fully welded in just because I don't want the oil pan to get so stinking ass hot where I can't work with it. But actually the welds for being on cast aluminum aren't too bad. The welds like going directly on these ones, those are gonna look really good. Those are gonna be like, yo, spank my manky. What? This is the baffle out of the stock oil pan. I cut this down 2 inches too because we cut everything else down 2 inches. There are 2 little tabs here, and then there are rubber grommets that go on there. We aren't gonna put the rubber grommets on yet because we aren't quite welding this in. That slides into those holes there, and then that sits down there, and then we're gonna weld that. We're gonna fill that back in with weld again. Now with it in, it like divides the pan up into 2 areas, but there's still a little bit of room for oil to get by, and this will be the main separation of the pan, but we're also gonna add in some more baffles with even like tighter tolerances. Now what I'm doing is I'm gonna start welding the side plates on. I was kind of thinking I'm gonna weld the baffles to the bottom of the pan, but I want to weld them to the side right here. We're gonna get to welding again. This video is gonna be a lot of welding. There's gonna be a lot, but like I love welding content. It's just like so fun to watch.
Yeah,
and
you're
like,
just not a cool guy if you don't like welding content.
yeah, that's it. This shit's starting to come together.
That's an oil pan.
Yeah, that's an oil pan. It's like before it was an oil pan, now it's like, damn, that dang oil pan. So what I'm gonna do now is, because, you know, like this is high up and I feel like resting my hand on something, I'm gonna rest my hand on 99% alcohol. So it is flammable. We are welding with it, but at the end of the day, does it really matter?
It's worth it to get the nice bead in there.
Yeah. That looks pretty spanking to me, boys. We got most of the oil pan welded up. I have the bottom plate on, the side plates. Dude, can we just get a look at this thing and look how good this thing is? Like, this is pretty fucking race car, if you ask me. I just want to get a quick mock-up on the engine here. Oh yeah. Dude, does that look pretty race car?
Yeah.
Now what we're gonna do before we weld the top plate back on, we're gonna weld a baffle on this side, and then we're going to finish the welding in the inside.
Put the thing on.
All right guys, so now we are welding our top plate back on. We're pretty much finishing it up. I got a baffle welded in. Then I'm gonna throw this baffle in. Then we'll be ready to bolt the oil pan to the engine. guys, so it's getting pretty late. I still have some more welding we have to do, but we're pretty much done with the oil pan. We got the baffles welded in. It just looks so race car, you know? So we're gonna put the pickup tube on. Dude, it's so funny looking at the pickup tube like that because it's just so small and short. But it's like,
it's perfectly sized.
It's perfectly sized. I'm not making fun of it for, you know, being
small and stubby.
Small.
Short.
But the thing is, we had to shorten it to get the job done, so it has to be short.
Yeah.
Because
it fits.
It fits.
Yeah.
Because if it's too long, it's not gonna work.
No, yeah. Too long to be hitting stuff, you know.
Yeah.
You know my saying, there's a pole for every hole.
All right, guys, you ready? We're gonna throw it up. Oh yeah.
Yeah, bud.
All right, guys, so that's the oil pan, close to done. I wish I could get it all done for you. I'm gonna like finish the welding and I'm gonna brush all of the aluminum. Like I'm gonna take a wire brush and brush it all up so it looks good. I have a little bit more welding to do, so tomorrow I'm gonna get that done. The oil pan's gonna be done, but you guys get the picture. Jude, are you stoked?
I think it looks awesome.
Now I'm going to be able to like go anywhere in this car. I'm gonna be able to go off-roading. Not really, but I'm gonna be able to pull out of my driveway without it scraping. So I'm super stoked about this. Now this car is actually gonna be like drivable. That just makes me so happy. That being said, guys, we're gonna call it here. I don't know what next video is gonna be yet. It's probably gonna be on the Vanos, or we might actually switch it up completely and do a video on the 2002. Because we got to start getting some work done on this car for it to be ready for this race season. Like a lot of work. So guys, on that note, dream so big it's scary. Peace out, and we'll catch you in the next one. Boom.